6 o'clock. I'd like to call the January 22nd meeting of the Plympton School Committee to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we are being videotaped, and I want to acknowledge that Mrs. McBride is here for our meeting this evening. Did you have any comments for the committee before we get started? Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Seeing no other visitors, we move on to the approval of the regular minutes from December 11th, 2023. Okay. A second. Were there any changes that needed to be made that you saw? Okay, so seeing no further comment, all those in favor? Aye. Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to the South Shore Children's Chorus Flyer and Kingston Youth Lacrosse Flyer distribution and a possible vote to allow.
Sure. In your package, you'll see two different flyers. One is from Kingston Youth Lacrosse. Plympton has in the past approved Kingston Youth Lacrosse to be distributed in backpacks. South Shore Children's Chorus is not based in one of our three towns. It is a nonprofit organization. Again, we didn't know to what extent the school committee would be interested in branching out and allowing a group beyond our three towns to distribute flyers in our students' backpacks. So there's two different flyers for your review and possible approval.
I have no problem with the lacrosse one. We've sent it home before. Does anybody have any reservations about including the South Shore Children's Chorus?
I think it's harmless.
Okay. No? Okay. So I'll accept a motion to approve both of the flyers to go home.
Make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
And on to a request to share the Old Colony Planning Council survey and a possible vote to approve.
So I'm going to turn this over to Ryan because I believe they reached out to him with regards to the survey.
Sure. There was a representative from the Old Colony Planning Council that actually reached out to the middle school to share the housing needs survey. And so, since it's coming from the town, for residents of the town of Plympton, we responded that we would take it to the, they actually asked us to distribute it, but I said that we needed to bring it to the school committee to get permission for it to be distributed. So this is the survey. They agreed that they would like the school committee to consider whether it could be distributed through the Parent Square to residents of the town of Plympton. So this is the entire survey, and I asked if there was any more information that they wanted to provide to the school committee to talk about the rationale for sharing it, and they said this was sufficient.
Do any of you have any questions about this survey going on?
We saw this one a few weeks ago. We at the library.
Yeah. I believe we have sent it home before, maybe in a different form, but for similar needs and through a similar organization. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the survey from the Old Colony Planning Council to go home.
Make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Second for Nikki. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Unanimous. Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
School committee correspondence. I received a correspondence from an individual, but we can discuss that. It's covered under executive session. Jill, did you have any correspondence?
The only correspondence I received was for the commissioner's approval of the revised, updated regional agreement for Silver Lake to incorporate pre-K and make the adjustments to the regulatory language.
Excellent. Appreciate all the hard work put in on making those adjustments and changes in time for our budget season. I know it's going to complicate some of the numbers we see tonight and over the next couple of weeks, but hopefully as we get a little bit deeper into it, things will come into clearer focus and we can ask some of those questions that help clarify for us so we can share it with the community members as well. New business, town meeting items. Is that a holdover?
I think it's a holdover.
We might as well leave it there because there might be town meeting items for May coming up that we might want to add on. So might as well leave it there.
Okay.
So on to unfinished business. So I've been approached by a few members of the community of varying backgrounds who are dog owners, who are really missing the opportunity to have their dogs up here at the Dennett. You know, feeling that walking around the track that had been installed around the fields with dogs leashed doesn't cause any problems with dog waste on the fields, and a lot of the dog owners who keep their dogs on leashes also pick up after their dogs. I told them that we didn't really have much of an ability to enforce a leash law, or, you know, what dogs are okay and what dogs aren't okay. So I was hoping, with your permission and consent, that I can bring this forth to the select board again and see how they feel about potentially putting some enforcement in and maybe having a leash law on public properties like the Dennett, so people who will keep their dog on a leash and pick up after their dog could potentially use those facilities when kids aren't here at school. A lot of this comes down to mobility issues and where to walk the dog in town other than the nice flat area that we have here at the Dennett. You know, dog park has been discussed for a couple of years now. There's no movement on that right now. The liability insurance on a dog park's higher than most people would probably care to imagine. So just looking for some common ground and some possible solutions, even for parents of students who are playing soccer or softball who want their dog there, can keep it on a leash and pick up after it. Did we see a noticeable decrease in the amount of dog waste on the fields when we instituted the total ban?
I mean, I could touch base with the folks that were monitoring. I think, no.
Not really, right. So I think that's part of why the conversations come back to us again, that we hadn't really seen much of a change in the total output. But yet people who are responsible and you know, taking care of their dog are feeling like they're being punished for people who just aren't taking care of it. And what can we do to make sure not everyone's being punished in a group punishment? So, everybody okay with me going to the select board about that?
That's fine with me. I think the irony is the people that are the problem are disregarding the ban anyway.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a moot point
Right,
if we keep the ban on.
right.
So we
Agreed.
might as well, I mean, if they can push a leash law in town.
Yep, and not like an overall leash law. I don't want anybody
Yeah.
to misunderstand, but when you're on public property, like at the school, you know, if you keep your dog on a leash and you have some bags with you, it should not be a problem for us to allow that here at the Dennett. Kate, do you have any reservations about me discussing that with the board?
I'm just concerned that if you discuss like a partial leash law, it would extend to other areas
Yeah.
that people use. Like my dogs are all off leash and they're trained off leash.
Mhm.
That would ruin those areas for people. Their
Yep.
dogs would have to be leashed there.
So maybe just school grounds. Okay, so walk with caution. Okay, understood. All right, thank you. And playground, do we have any updates on any of the testing? We're going to line that up for the spring or sooner. We did authorize the funds to be used to make sure we got the property, the project installed properly into code. And we could have an update on where we might be with that at our next meeting, how we want to proceed. Okay, so on to reports of standing committees, admin review.
We have a meeting scheduled for February 8th at 5 p.m.
Have all members been made aware of that? Or is it only you and the chair so far?
10 guests have been invited.
Okay,
And, let's see, 1,
I
2,
already said yes.
3, 4, 5, 6 people have responded.
okay. Could you just have Karen send out a reminder of that one?
Yes.
Because that might have gone out way
Early.
back in October.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay, on to policy. Entertain a motion to waive the actual read of the policy. Okay, and do I have a second? Okay, second by Kate. All those in favor? Okay, so this was just a policy we left off the laundry list last time we were together. So I will make a motion that we accept as a second read policy ECAFG regarding the use of our security cameras. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dan. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Negotiations.
We have a meeting tomorrow night scheduled to discuss the potential impact of the Silver Lake Pre-K and Silver Lake Elementary positions, possible changes for staffing at Dennett Elementary School tomorrow.
And Union 31.
February 15th, we have a joint school committee meeting scheduled.
What time is that February 15th meeting?
I believe it's 6.
And is it just
Oh,
Union
actually,
31 or is it?
It says 5.
What does it say?
Yeah, it's on the original calendar, it's 5 p.m.
Is there a Silver Lake after that, or is this exclusive to Union 31?
It's exclusive to
For
Union
shared
31
cost?
and shared cost.
Perfect.
Is it in person doing it?
It says TBD, so
5 o'clock's awfully tough for.
we can send a request out if there's a preference.
Yeah.
Or
You
if
could see
there-
what Jean wants to
Mhm.
do, but it sounds like with the earlier start, a virtual would probably make it more likely to get a quorum.
It's on the 15th.
I can ask you.
15th of February. Yep. Okay. Back?
I was out of the country during the last meeting.
Do you have a meeting coming up anytime soon?
The next one is Thursday, the 7th of March.
Okay, great. Capital improvements, so Mike Lawless and I actually met with Town Properties on Monday, and Mike did a great job. Answered all their questions, admitted when he didn't have information, said he'd circle back. Talked about a lot of the air handlers on the roof. And we got direction from Town Properties to line those up in the order of need. And we'll try and get as many of those taken care of as possible through remaining ARPA funds. That's all going to be going back to the county yet again and then redistributed one last time. So even if we don't get on the list this time, if they see it, next time it comes around, we might be able to qualify for it. So Mike got that information. You might want to circle back with him on that.
Sure.
We were also very cautious about how the changes to our end of year might look with some of the rearrangements of the Dennett budget. You know, at the end of the year, sometimes we've had surplus that the town has allowed us to use to do some improvements here at the school. With next year's budget, we don't know if we're going to have those kinds of surpluses anymore in June. So again, making sure if you have any of the classrooms that need a rug or tiles done, to really lean into those dollars at the end of this year so we can communicate it to the town and we can get their approval to move things around so we can maintain the building to the best of our ability.
It will be done.
Thank you. Legislative agent, governor's budget comes out in less than 36 hours, and I am not extremely hopeful that we're going to see much growth in state aid. As many of you know, she had to cut $1 billion from this year's budget just 2 weeks ago. Plympton was hit, our schools weren't, but Plympton did take some hits and some clawbacks of earmarks that hadn't been realized yet, monies that we were just about to spend or were going to spend before June 30, and now those monies have evaporated. The prognostications for next year is that the budget revenues are going to remain flat. So that $1 billion she had to take off of last year's budget, that's where she's starting this year's budget from. So no growth in the state budget. Same thing at the federal level as well. If anything, it's going to be cuts. So we're going to have to be very, very cognizant of the bottom line dollars because it's going to come out of our neighbors' pockets this year. Single signature warrants.
I am circulating 8 warrants for signatures tonight, totaling $166,330.39.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And any update about CASA and the Winterfest potentially?
I can give my portion, and I have part of the Casa Winterfest in there too.
Thank you.
Our current enrollment is 253 students. Just recently, students received their 3rd all-school rocks meeting. Our focus was on community. Individual classrooms won Golden Awards for their work in a variety of different school settings, the Golden Recorder for music, Golden Sneaker for PE class, Golden Dustpan, and it is a rousing success, K through 6. Kids are really enjoying it. I give Christine an awful lot of credit for her work with the committee on that. CASA held their annual Winterfest Friday night. It was a great success. We're still trying to fill vacant positions, Title I reading and math interventionist. And I think Dave can attest to the fact that we're just not getting applicants. And yeah, that's pretty much it for right now.
Our Title I reading and our Title I math, what full-time equivalency are they each?
27 hours a week, so I'd have to do some math.
No, that's okay. Is there any sense in combining them into one full-time equivalent?
They're not both Title I.
No.
They're not both Title I?
No.
Okay. So Title I is the reading and the math is an interventionist?
Correct.
That you fund through a different source?
Yes.
Okay.
But until we find the math person, we are looking at doing a combination of the reading and the math for the Title I position that's being filled. So that will help out a little bit.
Good. Excellent. Any questions for Peter? All right. On to our financial report. Our Director of Finance and Operations, Sarah?
So in your packets, your digital packets, there is the financial report for Dennett Elementary School. You will see that there's a deficit in the indemnification line. That's due to a change in provider. There are deficits in the special education, transportation, tuition, and contracted services lines. The budget for FY25 takes this into consideration, and we'll be filing a circuit breaker extraordinary relief claim this spring to hopefully offset these costs.
Any questions about the financial from Sarah? Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the financial report as presented.
Second.
Oh, You make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
There you go. Do we have a second? Got a second from Nikki. All those in favor? Awesome. Thank you very much, Sarah. On to Ryan.
Thank you. I have a couple quick updates. One of them, the curriculum instruction and assessment update, is just an update on the district multi-tiered system of support working group. I wanted to thank Christine Marcolini and Jen Chaffins from Dennett for their help on the district-wide MTSS working group, which all of our schools are working together to develop an action plan to make sure there are common support team practices to help teachers and students with interventions, and also trying to develop a consistent, I'd say like a toolkit of intervention. So we've made some progress this year, and each school is represented. So I just wanted to thank Christine and Jennifer for their work with that group. The next agenda item is about the DESE Vocal Survey, and that stands for Views of Climate and Learning. One of our Superintendency Union 31 districts has elected to offer the vocal survey to their students. So I've been bringing this to each of the school committees to see if it's the choice of any other school committees to offer the survey to students. So at the elementary level, the survey asks students about school climate, like engagement, safety, questions like that. There's copies of the survey inside of the folder. It would be offered in 4th grade here at Dennett, and in 5th grade. It would be the last thing the students do after their science assessment in 5th grade and after the math assessment in 4th. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee to see if it were the will of the committee to offer that to students here at the Dennett, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
I'm opposed to it. I just wanted to make sure I explain why. We currently have a policy on the books that said that parents have the right to opt out. they would have the right to opt out of this, but the way the test is set up is that it automatically is on every single student's MCAS. So then it would be incumbent upon the teacher to know what kids weren't supposed to take the survey and tell them to stop and somehow monitor that while they were taking the test. We haven't traditionally used this as a data collection device here at the Dennett, and I just think it would, if it doesn't violate the word, it violates the spirit of that policy. To ask a 4th or 5th grader to remember if they're supposed to take a survey or not on MCAS day.
And don't we have a similar survey that goes out with the same, key points that it asks about? So.
We do.
So, would anybody like to make a motion to allow or not allow the survey to be administered here?
I guess I would make a motion to not allow. I agree with your points.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of not administering the survey, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
And on to our superintendent. Jill?
In your packet, you will find updated October 1 enrollment charts now that the revised regional agreement incorporating pre-K has been approved by the commissioner starting June 30th or July 1st, moving forward into the new year. Those will be our October 1st enrollments that we will base our budgetary amounts on for the upcoming fiscal year. And so I wanted you to have those items in the packet. Also, you could see how it changed or would have been different if pre-K, for example, was not included in the enrollment. So your charts are in there as well with the updated approved amount in terms of how we're quantifying enrollment in each of the districts moving forward. All of our school districts have voted and approved the calendar, so I wanted to thank you and circle back to let you know that the calendar had been approved. And so next month we will put on the agenda the school committee calendar for your review. The next item is the preliminary budget. And I don't know if you have a, thank you, Pete. But at the beginning of the school year, we start by reviewing the budget process with our principals, coordinators. We ask our principals to reach out to their grade level teams or their departments to find out what they may need for the upcoming school year, for the following school year, I should say. And then in November, we had our special education director, our technology director, and our curriculum coordinator present budget overviews, programmatic overviews at a joint committee meeting. We then get together in smaller groups once the principals have submitted their budgets to discuss how the budget will support the student needs, whether or not the budget can help us to maintain class sizes. We consider the fiscal conditions of the town, and we also ask our principals to explain how the budget will support the strategy for district improvement. In considering the fiscal conditions of the town or towns, we have prepared for you a level services budget. And, One thing I want to, next slide please, is point out some of the ways that we presented the budget in the past and the ways that we will be presenting the budget moving forward or changes to the upcoming budget for a variety of reasons. So not everything is linked directly to the regional agreement change, but some of the things that were brought up to us after the original pre-K discussion, whether it be from DESE or the state, regarding the way that we currently structure our finances in the district. So in the past, out-of-district student tuitions were charged to the elementary budgets. Regardless of where students, if they were in the elementary school or in the secondary schools, those tuitions were charged to Dennett Elementary School if the student resided in Plympton. In the past, Silver Lake Elementary programs existed in Dennett Elementary School had Silver Lake staff. In the past, we had the need for a variety of special education revolving accounts because of the creation of a Silver Lake Elementary structure that dates back decades. The curriculum coordinator was actually considered a Silver Lake contract and position, yet our curriculum coordinator only provides support to Union 31 schools. And in the past, we have voted 3 lines as a school committee: regular, special education, and out-of-district vocational. While we can share those numbers with you, it has come to our attention from the state, in particular, I think it was last week, in communication with Mr. Jay Sullivan, that we should not be voting 3 lines. We should present 1 voted line to the town, for the town. And we can speak more about that as to why that is, but this is how in the past things were done. Moving forward, I will now parse out some of the changes. Pre-K will now be a Silver Lake expense. Silver Lake positions in the elementary schools will need to become school or town employees. And the curriculum coordinator, how that will work, it's our belief that the curriculum coordinator will need to become a town employee in one of our schools. That has not been officially decided, and then portions of the coordinator's salary would be charged out to the other elementary districts. The out-of-district special education tuitions for pre-K and 7 through 12 plus will be a Silver Lake expense per the Department of Education. This came up, I think, if I recall, late 2023. As we were examining the potential changes to the revolving accounts in one of our meetings with DESE, they explained to us that our out-of-district tuitions for pre-K and 7 through 12 must be made as Silver Lake expense. That they should not have been charged to the elementary schools. That they should have been charged to the towns through the Silver Lake assessment process. The extended school year, since we will no longer have revolving accounts as we have in the past, the extended school year will now be part of each school's budget. So it's not a new expense, it's just, will be coming from officially coming from the budget as opposed to a revolving account. The special education grant will now be used for out-of-district tuition costs instead of staffing. So I'll talk about exactly how much money we'll be using towards out-of-district tuition costs and making sure that Dennett receives the same offset they would have received for staffing. It's just going to be applied to a different line. Shared cost positions are going to be paid according to the regional agreement percentages. Over, I don't know how many years, certain changes were made to certain positions, shared cost positions. Facilities director, for example. Special education was calculated differently. The food services director. All of those things had different amounts, percentages being charged out to the elementary schools. Those shared cost positions are going to be parsed out according to the actual regional school agreement. And then finally, although we have spoken with DESE that Silver Lake will be able to use circuit breaker moving forward, exactly what that mechanism will be and how that will impact Dennett must be agreed upon in consultation with DESE for FY25. So we're waiting on more information with regards to circuit breaker. Next slide.
Part of the inherent issue with circuit breaker is it's reimbursement for the year you've already been through. So next year, the kids are going to be under the Silver Lake budget. Circuit breaker money would come out. You would think it would follow the kid, but we're the ones who encumbered the services the prior year. But again, where's the need? It's where the kids are that year. So it's a mess. I'm glad that's on your slide and that you clarified that for us.
Yeah.
Even if we don't have an answer yet, that it's still
We're
something
working on it.
that needs to be discussed.
So special education, you're going to see pre-K Although it will still be housed in Kingston, it will be considered a Silver Lake program. Silver Lake rents the use of the Kingston building. Tuitions, transportation, it will have its own programmatic budget in the Silver Lake budget. Out-of-district costs, that will be coming out of the Plympton budget. You will no longer see tuitions for students grades 7 through 12 in the Plympton budget. You will not see transportation out-of-district costs for students in grades 7 through 12 plus for special education. And circuit breaker reimbursement moving forward for Dennett Elementary School will no longer include pre-K and out-of-district secondary. Next slide, please. Increases to the Plympton budget. The following will no longer be Silver Lake funded. So currently we have 2 paraprofessionals working in Dennett Elementary School. In order to maintain level services, they would become, in theory, Dennett Elementary School employees for approximately $60,000. We have included those in this preliminary budget. We assumed level services and we assumed those costs moving forward. The cafeteria is still being discussed, but currently the cafeteria operates under a Silver Lake revolving account. And although the federal government does not have an issue with this remaining a Silver Lake account, it becomes a Silver Lake issue as to whether or not in practice it should continue this, because we would recognize that through this type of setup, of course there are ways to save money, but we are not one district. This is the best way I can explain it. The estimated cost for a shared curriculum coordinator, the Plympton expense would be about $40,000.
Now, just to pump the brakes for a second. So, the 2 paras that you have there for 60,000-ish, right? When I go to the actual budget, has that been put in to the budget that we have presented to us right now?
Yes, they have.
Okay, excellent.
But we haven't gotten to the decrease side yet. So this, what Jill had explained is the 240 grant, the special education grant.
Right.
These paraprofessionals are moving the salary out of the grant, and we're going to move tuitions into the grant.
Right. But doesn't this also reflect the 2 paras we were paying under Silver Lake? So this is part of the understood that we knew that we were going to be taking this on. I think the cafeteria worker might have caught some of us by surprise, even though a few of us knew that our kitchen has long been considered a warming kitchen and then a true kitchen, but a satellite of Silver Lake. Still something that hadn't really clicked in yet. Is that 52,000 in this budget yet?
It is.
Thank you, okay. Thank you.
So we made certain assumptions with the preliminary budget, so that will account for some of the increases that you will see, some of the decreases that you'll see. Again, these things have not been formally decided, but we wanted you to see the potential impact to the budget. The extended school year for Plympton, $65,000 plus for tuitions, $7,500 for transportation. Decreases to the Plympton budget, you will see a decrease of $255,000 for tuition and transportation for pre-K in grades 7 through 12. That will be an increase to the Silver Lake budget. What we had used for funding for staff will now be used to offset the cost of out-of-district tuitions. So you'll see a $60,000, $743 offset in this preliminary budget has already been taken. It may be greater depending upon the amount of money we get in the 240 grant. But that would also account for an increase in your salary line, but a decrease in your out-of-district tuition line. Next slide. Circuit breaker is estimated at 70%. This offset has not been taken.
That's not.
Because again, as we said, we are still talking with DESI with regards to how circuit breaker would work. In theory, we're estimating the elementary portion to be about 101K. Regular day would reflect an 11.49% increase of 328,000. Special education, a 10.17% decrease of 141,000 plus. Substitutes in this budget are level funded. Utilities have been increased by 5%. Shared cost estimates are included, but they have not been updated to reflect any changes. The first step, the administrative review team in February will take a look at potential contractual changes, and mid-February, the joint committee will review and potentially vote a new shared cost budget. So we have shared costs included to give you a rough sense, but this number could fluctuate.
Yeah, and fluctuate up. I've never seen shared costs fluctuate down in a decade, so.
Next slide. Homeless transportation is a placeholder estimate. We are able to offset one kindergarten faculty with an anticipated REAP grant of about $24,000. This amount may change. That's not,
Is that an annual grant or a one-time?
we get notice each year, and we have been qualifying every year, but the amount fluctuates.
Has it faded over time, or does it fluctuate up and down a little bit?
It's remained fairly constant. I'd say it's gone a little bit down, but not dramatically.
Not like some other
Decreased,
grants that
right.
we know about. A lot of grants for schools come out strong and then they fade to basically zero within 5 to 10 years sometimes. So that's why I asked that question.
Out-of-district vocational, we have one student that we anticipate will continue. We have 3 placeholders budgeted in the total. As you know, April 1st is the deadline, so we won't know for certain until April 1st.
So 2 extra placements, one's already one we anticipate
Yes.
will continue. Okay.
There are no school choice reductions taken this year. Not included in this budget. Additional staffing that Principal Veneto is going to speak to. Potential enrollment increases. It can be very difficult, for example, to calculate our kindergarten enrollment. And ELL needs. We are a low incident district, and currently we reimburse Kingston for FTE hours through one of their ELL teachers. Now I'm going to turn it over to Principal Veneto to talk about his projected class size comparisons from this year to next based upon level services and other anticipated needs that he has for you. He also has a narrative in the packet this evening.
So the real mystery every year is the kindergarten numbers. We used to be able to get a decent projection from town hall. We've been using 40 as a placeholder for the last few years. It's a safe number. If that holds true based on our current numbers, we could be looking at as many as 264 students for the next school year. Classroom-related increases, increases of 42%, which translates to $19,915. That's for ELA books, classroom libraries, science consumables, social studies resources, and a new Sunday system. It's a reading intervention program. Facility-related, Mike and I need to talk about, is there anything coming out of this? Is there anything that we definitely directly need next year? We're going to jump into that. Nothing is shining bright at me right now. Some items that I feel need to be addressed for our students. Currently, we have a 0.6 or a 3-day-a-week speech teacher, and I can back this up with some numbers in a moment. It's simply not enough time. 3 days a week is not enough time to fully service the amount of kids that are receiving speech or language services. I can show you with the numbers in a moment. I feel pretty strongly that we need another full-time special education teacher. And when you see the numbers on our EL population, I feel we need a half-time person. And like I said, I can back these up in just a moment.
I have a question.
Certainly.
So the speech teacher, you currently have one, correct?
Yes,
So the 19,000 would be purely for the additional day,
correct,
not for benefits.
correct.
But new personnel that you bring on board, the numbers you have reflected there, is that purely salary, or is that salary and benefits that we would have to pay?
I believe just
Just
salary.
salary.
So it would be additional cost to what Peter's reflecting up there. Okay, thank you.
Plympton students receiving EL services, we currently have 6 Dennett students as of January 2024. I'll show another number on that in a moment. So currently, as Jill explained, EL services are provided by the Kingston ESL teacher, and we reimburse Kingston for those services. Structure is based on student need and EL education recommendations from DESE, and I can show you those. How students are identified as English language learners. Students new to a district complete a home language survey and take a WIDA screener if needed. Based upon their score, they may be identified as an EL. Students already in the district take the access test every January/February, and their score determines the extent of their services. Some students have 2 periods of ESL per day, others have 1 period or less depending on their needs. ESL instruction is required to be delivered by a licensed ESL teacher. Students become former ELs, FELs, when they score at least a 4.2 on access. They are monitored for 4 more years. The form is completed twice per year for each student. These are our numbers since March of 2020. We went from 1 to 5 to 5 to 2 to 3 to 6.
Does anyone from the administration have the ability to pull up how much we're paying Kingston right now for the contracted services for the English language learners in Dennett?
I do not, sorry.
Okay.
I will
For
get
for
that
next
for
for
next
next conversation, just so we can compare, because I'm reticent to hire someone with the fluctuations I see up there, especially if I don't know how much it's costing us right now to just have it contracted out. I know eventually we get to a point where it makes more sense to have an in-house person. I just don't know if we're there yet with the data I have.
Sure.
Peter, are the fluctuations because kids are phasing out of the program or leaving?
I would say mostly leaving.
Okay.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing is with numbers this low, we have to be a little careful of how much description we give, because then we could identify the student, but good question.
Yep.
Good answer as well.
And he's here just 1 day a week currently, the EL teacher.
So DESE gives us recommended minutes for EL students. Currently at Dennett, we are not meeting the minimum recommended minutes for multilingual learners. So on the WIDA level 1 to 2 or foundational, as an absolute minimum recommendation, those students should be receiving 90 minutes a day or 450 minutes a week from an ESL teacher. WIDA level 3 foundational, 45 to 90 minutes per day. And levels 4, 5, and 6, it's called transitional, 45 minutes a day minimum or 225 minutes a week. Our students are not getting this currently.
So when you build out that comparison, could you please build it out what it would be if we were paying the contracted services to meet minimum standards from DESE versus hiring a person? I don't want to build it out based on not meeting the needs of the students versus having someone. Just make it apples to apples.
Sure.
Okay? Either way, we need to meet the needs. So just build it that way, please.
This graph represents our percentage of students with disabilities. In the 21-22 school year, we had 15.5% of our students that were listed as students with a disability. That then jumped to 17.8%. That has now gone up to 18.9%. And that is not reflective of our pre-referral service or anything like that. We're just getting more kids with needs. This graph refers to the speech and language caseload. It goes back to September of 2018, when our person served 16 students, then 19, then 21, then 20, then 24, then 23. A handful, I'd say 3 or 4 students have 3 times services per week. The majority have 2 times services per week. And we have a very small number that only see her 1 time a week.
How many full-time equivalent special ed teachers do we have right now at the Dennett?
3.0.
Right. And just for the record, in 2021, we brought on a third during the midst of the COVID shutdowns and the hybrid schooling. Through contentious town meetings, we managed to get a third special ed teacher put into the budget just 3 years ago. So this would be in addition to that to bring you to 4.
Correct.
Okay.
In addition to the sheer number of special education services that we're seeing an increase in the percentage of high needs students. A student is high needs if they're designated as either low income, economically disadvantaged, EL, former EL, or a student with disabilities. And again, this breaks down that percentage, so this is not just special education. We've gone from 24.7% of all students up to 38.3% of all students are now considered high needs. And again, this graph illustrates our number of EL learners. And again, this outlines the recommended minutes for EL students. And this is very much, I feel, new territory for us. Where we had 1 or 2, it was kind of easy enough to have the person from Kingston come over. To your point, Jason, the minutes are really starting to add up.
Yeah.
I just thought this was an interesting number. Back in 2020, at one point, we were below 200 students. We were at 199. By the end of that year, we were at 226. We started the next school year at 209. We started the next school year at 241. We're up to 251 right now, and 253 actually, I'm sorry. That should be reflected there. That's the highest that has been here in my 15 years. And if we do, in fact, have 40 students start kindergarten next year, along with the grade 1 through 6 kids that we already know about, that will put us over 260. So that you should have that information. So some of the things that have been done in years past is that under the FY24, we were able to do the flooring in 3 classrooms, 2 grade 6 classrooms, and we redid the computer lab. We were intending to get 3 more rooftops fixed. That did not happen. So that again appears over in FY25 as a need. We still need to replace those rooftop units that Jason spoke to earlier. It's been recommended that we replace the stage curtain. We're waiting quotes on replacing the outside siding. We had done that western facing wall 2 years ago. Mike was out with, at least I saw with one company the other day. We don't have any figures on that yet. But it's only a matter of time because that product is not a great exterior material.
Yeah, and the Plympton Town Properties Committee is well aware of that, and Mike added the flavor about certain things that are happening to certain walls, especially our south-facing walls. So he addressed some ways of taking care of it very, very short term, and some potential replacements as well.
There's historically been this feeling that the building is still new. The building is still new. The building is not new. And when you have a wood-based product on the exterior,
that was most likely installed incorrectly.
Bingo.
Right. I appreciate the flavor you gave to where the numbers are coming from. But I think it's time maybe we dig into some of the numbers a little bit. As many of you know, I also sit on the Silver Lake Regional School Committee, and we got preliminary numbers there last week, and seeing this budget this week, trying to digest all of the information, all of the changes that we've had to go through. Just looking at it from Plympton perspective, last year, we realized probably around November that we had some extraordinary special ed costs that were above and beyond what we expected to have in the budget. And we worked with the town and we managed to backfill and take care of those students and their needs that legally they're entitled to, and morally I feel that we owe them. And when we went to town meeting last year, we came to the town voters of Plympton with a $346,000 increase, an 8.75% increase or so. And they voted unanimously. So we already had a substantial increase last year. Seeing a big number from Silver Lake, though, I don't think I have a full perspective on it yet. But I was hoping that this number, the bottom line, would not be a 5% this year. I was hoping it would be a 0 or a negative. I know it's only $228,000, and that might not seem like an awful lot of money to our town. That is a significant portion of the overall budget. So my question really goes back to the teacher salary line. If anybody has the budget up right now, it's the function code 2300. It's the first one in that realm. So typically we see increases even with steps and lanes and with a good percentage cost of living of about $80,000 per year. This year we're seeing a jump of $220,000 year over year in the teacher line. Even if my math was off and I'd expected a $100,000 increase, can anyone explain to me where the $220,000 is coming from, aside from the percentage cost of living and the steps and lanes? If you can't, I understand, but I would love to have that information to understand why we potentially need more staff. You illustrated clearly, but with the staff increasing already by 15%, I don't know if I can wrap my head around adding more to that number in that line. So that was a major area that came to my attention when looking at the budget. Another big area that I think I understand was in the special ed transportation line. It's up by $60,000, and I have some assumptions. Admin, please let me know if I'm right or wrong, but this has to do with how now we have to transport some of our students from just Plympton alone, who are in K to 6 out of district placements. Is that correct for the $137,487 for out of district transportation? It would be just above function line 9233, which is just its own function line. It's a 77.2% increase.
That transportation line includes out-of-district transportation as well as extended school year and any in-district transportation.
Okay.
For special ed students.
And is the increase reflected because we didn't realize as much transportation reimbursement, or just versus the actual costs we're realizing? Did we under budget it last year?
What we're finding is that it is under budgeted this
Okay.
year. That was one of the things I mentioned during my budget
You did.
update, is where.
That's one of our deficits this year?
Yes.
Right, okay. Moving down from that function code to the next 9290. You see two big increases. One is special ed tuition. Another one is a special ed tuition, for a total of $270,000 in special ed tuitions increase from last year, being largely offset by about a $600,000 decrease in special ed tuitions,
Yeah.
for a grand total change of $300,000 less of special ed tuitions versus last year. So is this a reflection of our out-of-district placements no longer being part of our budget and now being part of Silver Lakes?
So there's, yes, and in addition to that, the special ed tuitions last year were voted in one line, just called Tuition Services Special Ed. And Dr. Panarese and I divided them out by their actual placements, whether it's a private separate day, public separate day, collaborative tuition, residential. And so that's why you see for 23-24, there are just a column of zeros, 4 zeros, and then one lump number there.
Additional function codes to reflect those breakouts.
So that tuition services sped line, that's $29,765, that reflects the cost of extended school year minus the anticipated 240 grant.
Awesome. If you could add to those 4 lines at any point in the description, just little, out-of-district res, out-of-district day, just like you did on the Silver Lake one, that would be awesome if you could do that now that we're breaking it out.
So in the Silver Lake, I created those lines and got to name them myself. These were just the existing
No, I like your
lines.
names.
Okay.
I did.
I will.
The extra information is very helpful. So the big question is, what is Silver Lake's assessment going to be for us? Because Silver Lake's assessment again last year for Plympton was up 6%, or about $146,000. So both of the schools, we added about $500,000 to the town budgets last year. And very much needed with the increase in the special ed needs of the residents of our own town. We were taking care of our kids. And with the increases we were seeing, inflationary pressures hitting us in various areas. Obviously, this is very preliminary, and until we get a more solid understanding of what the Silver Lake overall budget's going to look like, I don't really think we can make too much movement on this budget right now. But I want you to really think long and hard about Peter's comments on the needs of the students and how we can best service them here. And admin, I would really like to know where that $220,000 increase in salaries came from. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns, things that you want us to think about, things you want the admin to look into between now and our next meeting?
When might we see that assessment from Silver Lake?
So there's still some items of our own budget that we need to work out. That's part of what the meeting tomorrow night is going to figure out. And that's a negotiation session with negotiation teams from all 4 school committees, meeting with affected personnel. We also have to wait for the governor's preliminary budget for FY25, because that's where we get information from the Department of Revenue of what kind of state aid we're going to be seeing back, both at the region and locally. And that comes out on Wednesday. The fact that we have these numbers in front of us tonight, I think was moving mountains on behalf of the administration, considering all of the hoops they've been jumping through just to get the regional agreement adjusted, trying to figure out who belongs under which umbrella, what contracts, really trying to clean up an awful lot of messes that have occurred not by any malicious deeds. It was just the practice of keeping the schools running most effectively. And then we realized, whoops, there's a regulation, we need to do that differently. And this whole regional agreement readjustment has brought a lot of those things into light, and Desi's been guiding us through a lot that we don't have much say over. Like, you need to change this to be in compliance with state regulations and laws.
I mean to laugh, but when you say guiding.
Yeah, guiding.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, we've gotten away with things for a while, and now we're actually in compliance with the law and regulations where we're supposed to be in the first place. So, I don't want to put too much pressure on the admin team to flip and turn things around. I know that they've already put together another meeting for Silver Lake to come together next week just to look over some new information and data. When is our next Plympton meeting?
February 26th.
Yeah, which is plenty of time for us to really hash things out. That's prior to us meeting with the finance committee. And if we get any information that we could maybe have a quick online meeting and just talk numbers, we could always do a remote and hop on and ask a couple questions so they know what we're thinking and we're not violating open meeting law by just having off-the-cuff conversations with each other, you know? So I can liaise with the superintendent, and if she thinks there's some major news prior to that next meeting, I can loop you all in and we can try and get together to talk it out.
Sounds good.
Any other questions, concerns? All right. I know it might sound like I'm being a Debbie Downer, I'm just trying to be very cautious moving forward. I do appreciate all the work and effort put into this. I know it's been a monumental task. I just know that if we're confused as the experts in town about where these numbers are coming from, us relaying those to our fellow citizens and the people who are ultimately going to vote this budget in town meeting, it's really important that we go slow and that we totally understand. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Please pass that on to any members of your team who weren't here tonight who've helped with this project.
Thank you.
All right. Any other information before we adjourn? Anybody got anything they need to say? No? So we have a joint school committee meeting February 15th, 5 o'clock. We're going to try and beg the chair of that committee to do it virtually. We have February vacation, February 19th to 23rd, and our next meeting is scheduled to be Monday the 26th. That is our public budget hearing, so we must start promptly at 6 o'clock and open it for any members of the public who want to talk to the budget. We'll get interested to hear what they have to say. Without further ado, I make a motion that we adjourn into executive session not to return to regular pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions with non-union personnel, the Plympton custodians, and pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law for the approval of the executive session minutes from 12/11/2003 or 23. So this has to be roll call. So Dan,
Yes.
Kate, Nikki, and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much.